Good morning and welcome to the second week of November. And this week, our Old Testament text, actually is for next weekend, is read from the prophet Zephaniah, the first chapter. Be silent before the Lord your God, for the day of the Lord is at hand. The Lord has prepared a sacrifice. He has consecrated his guests. At that time, I will search Jerusalem with lamps, and I will punish the people who rest complacently on their dregs. Those who say in their hearts, the Lord will not do good, nor will he do harm. Their wealth will be plundered, and their houses will be laid to waste. Though they build houses, they shall not inhabit them. Though they plant vineyards, they shall not drink from them. The great day of the Lord is near and hastening fast. The sound of that day of the Lord is bitter. The warrior cries aloud there. That day shall be a day of wrath, a day of distress and anguish, a day of ruin and devastation, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of the trumpet blast and a battle cry against the fortified cities, against the lofty battlements. I will bring such distress upon people that they shall walk like they are blind, because they have sinned against the Lord. Their blood shall be poured out like dust, and their flesh like dung. Neither their silver nor their gold will be able to save them on the day of the Lord's wrath. In the fire of his passion the whole earth shall be consumed. For a full, terrible end he will make of all the inhabitants of the earth. Here ends the reading. Dear friends, I ask you, what was the darkest day in your life? No, take some time, think about it. What was the darkest, gloomiest day of your existence? I believe I've had a number of dark days in my life, you probably would ask, and I would totally agree. From the day I left the ministry for a while, to the death of my father, to the death of my nephew, to the announcement that I had cancer. At least that was treatable. I can also recall many other days that had a number of ominous clouds circling around my head. On certain days, those memories still haunt me, even from a distance. And sometimes, even in my dreams, they come calling. Sometimes they are choices that I had made. Sometimes they are events that happened just simply out of the blue. And sometimes it's what others have done to me. And all too often they come out of their locked cages in the back of my memory, and they dance around like it was only yesterday. But these are simply mild compared to the images and the words that we have heard from the prophet Zephaniah. I will be the first to admit that this prophet was not on the first reads of my list. And even listening to the podcasts and reading commentaries, they tend to steer away from this reading and from the prophet as a whole. We like to hear positive messages. We want to hear words of hope and love and peace and joy. Yes, joy. We like to feel those warm fuzzies that make us feel good. To hear the sun will come out tomorrow. That even on a rainy day we have a chance of a rainbow. But from Zephaniah echoes the words of God. And here we find very little reason for hope. In the passages for the weekend, we find the focus once again is upon the day of the Lord. And many people around Zephaniah were looking forward to that day when God would reestablish God's rule here on earth. But such would not be the case, according to Zephaniah. Zephaniah spoke his message to the people during the final years and maybe the final days before the end of the southern kingdom. The people had seen the total destruction of the northern tribes by the Assyrians. Now the Assyrians, the great and mighty Assyrians, have been routed, and the people of Judah breathed a collective sigh of relief. They no longer had to pay money for protection to Assyria. Their lives could get back to normal, the way that they used to be. The way that they used to be, the good old days. But if we remember Amos from last week, things were not always good in the good old days, especially in the eyes of God. And guess what? Once again, God took a dim view of their way of life. God tells the people, "You shall build houses, but you will not live on them. You will plant gardens, but not eat from them. You shall plant grapes, but not taste the wine." All this meaning in a very short time, things will come to a sudden halt. But God still holds out hope. But not the kind of hope that we think of. In Zephaniah, God holds out the hope that a remnant, a small group, shall return. A remnant shall return from captivity, and they will make a new start. So what does this mean? What does this mean for those of us who live on this side of the cross? What can we glean from the prophet's words and from God's promises? The first thing that comes to my mind is the whole idea of integrity. We should try our best to live lives of integrity, where our words and actions follow our faith. That what we do inside the walls of the church have an impact on the way that we live outside the church. We also should look at the idea of hope. Hope here is not a wide open door, but instead is just a narrow crack in the door where a glimmer of light shines through. And the good news, of course, is that God never closes that door. Even in the midst of our darkest hours, when there seems to be no hope around, we will always have a ray of light, a glimmer of hope. Because with God, there's always hope. Amen.